Kansas Republican Senator Jerry Moran. Senator, are you getting worried that this doesn't happen?
Neil, I'm not worried yet that it doesn't happen, but it is difficult work to do. There are people who are strongly opposed to changing the benefits they get under the current tax code, and so the interest groups line up in support of what they want to keep. This will take strong presidential leadership, but it'll take the president fully engaged. Nothing's easy. The House has gone down the border adjustment tax issue much further than the Senate has, and I think that's a really big component. And when it's described to me, the border adjustment tax is described as the way we get significantly lower corporate rates, and that seems to be the best argument that anybody can make for the border adjustment tax. Makes me, let's just say this way, I'm skeptical about what it means to the U.S. economy. Very worried of what could happen. A lot of unknowns.
Yeah, and on that, the question is, do retailers put up such a stink, for example, and make it so difficult that it doesn't happen regardless, whatever your views on the subject? So let me ask you then, Senator, do you feel that an August deadline that the Treasury Secretary had outlined, that the administration had said was a goal, is realistic right now?
Well, I would say it's an okay goal. I wouldn't make it a firm commitment that anything is done by that date. Front and center for us when Congress reconvenes is the appropriations process. The continuing resolution expires at the end of the month, April the 28th, and we need to make sure that we've got an appropriation plan in place that takes us to the end of the fiscal year, September the 30th, and I think we're in pretty good shape to do that, and then I think we're back to taxes. But your analysis, the conversation you just had, the failure to get health care reform done, to repeal and replace the Affordable Care Act, people may not see that as having a consequence to the tax code, but it does. As you all point out, that's where a significant part of Speaker Ryan's money for tax reform was going to come from.
That's the goal here. You still have to deal with the health care thing, because I thought it was such an onerous task in the first place. That, I don't know, revisiting it could take weeks, months. I mean, right? This could push a lot of stuff back.
It doesn't get any easier, but perhaps surprisingly, Affordable Care Act reform replacement is a significant part of tax reform.
All right. Senator, in the meantime, post the Syria Tomahawk missile attack on the part of the president last week, nearly 6 out of 10 Americans in the latest poll approve of those airstrikes, but essentially are saying, cool it after that, consult Congress after that. How do you feel about that, and what's your own thoughts on the matter, especially if the Syrians tempt fate again, as they have, the leadership has, by attacking the same area where the chemical attacks occurred last week, but this time with conventional weapons?
Well, I think we all need to be skeptical about further engagement in any country, particularly in the Middle East, but around the globe. There was no strategy that was apparent to me, at least, in Libya. We know how long Iraq is taking, and therefore any kind of accidental or even on purpose entry into Syria, we could predict has serious consequences that are long-term. I have no objection to the president. In fact, I appreciate when the president said there was a line, if crossed, that there would be a response. I think it's important for our allies to trust us. I think it's important for our enemies to fear us, and if we don't do what we say, if there's not a consequence to bad behavior, then those two things fail. But I think when you go any further than this kind of humanitarian violation of a treaty agreement response, that being the use of chemicals, I also would point out we ought to have a lot of focus on Russia, who claimed that they had an agreement that those chemical weapons were gone. And it didn't turn out to be true, but I think once you go beyond this kind of response, Congress ought to be fully engaged, and I would encourage President Trump to do that, but perhaps more importantly, I would criticize Congress in the past for their timidity. We claim we want to have responsibilities. We claim that we're an equal branch of government, but when you see the times that we have walked away from dealing with an authorization of force or a declaration of war, I would put a lot of fault at the feet of Congress as well. We need to have a debate, discussion, and reach a conclusion about what the long-term goal is in Syria.
Senator, thank you very much.
Yes, sir.